Bleeding purple and gold. From the heart of Los Angeles, this is the LakersNation.com podcast with your host, Trevor Lane.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another show. Here we are, Lakers basketball is back. We've got real games to analyze. I am so excited. Before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by CLNS Media and LakersNation.com, your home for everything Lakers. Today's sponsors are Uptime Energy. You can pick up Uptime Energy drinks at 7-Eleven, GNC, or do like I do, order them on Amazon.com. Get a whole case of them delivered right to your door. It's a wonderful thing. Uptime Energy, how energy should feel. And Lightstream, credit solutions for you, credit consolidation to take all of your debt, put it into one small monthly payment with a low interest rate. Go check them out. A special offer just for our listeners at lightstream.com/Lakers. Again, lightstream.com/Lakers. We'll chat a little bit more about that later on in the show. But for today, we're bringing in Hannah Kulik from Lakers Nation to talk all about the Lakers' first two preseason games, the highlights, the lowlights, everything in between. Hannah, thanks so much for jumping on.
Of course, Trevor. Thank you so much for having me. I was actually at the game last night, and it was insane.
What was the energy like? I'm curious because I wasn't there in person for this one, but when LeBron James came out, when he came out of the tunnel, and then when he got announced, what was the reaction like in the building?
Trevor, the energy was like a Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Honestly, I mean, it was completely insane. It was a packed house, first of all, which is something I've never seen for a preseason game. Everyone was completely energized. When LeBron James' name was announced, I actually live streamed it for the first time. I did like my first Instagram live. You couldn't hear anything. I mean, people were just screaming. The fans were so fired up. And it was just a really exciting game and a pretty exciting moment.
Hannah, you and I went to a preseason game last year, the one in Anaheim when the Lakers were taking on the T-Wolves. And that was during the whole like Lonzo Ball hysteria. I mean, Lonzo was the big story. There was so much hype about him. He was just Las Vegas Summer League MVP. How does what happened last night at Staples Center compare to the reaction that Lonzo Ball was getting last season?
Well, obviously with Lonzo, it was pretty much a big fan frenzy as well. And we know this because we went to that game. But I think, and I actually heard someone on the radio describe this, and I think this is like a perfect analogy of how to describe maybe the difference between Lonzo and LeBron when they both joined LA. With Lonzo, you know, you're super excited and you're saying, oh, I need to get tickets. I really want to get tickets, but they're so expensive. I don't know, but I really want to. With LeBron, it's that feeling of, I don't care how expensive they are. I have to get tickets. I'm going to do whatever it takes to go see that game. So even though for both players, obviously fans were very excited to see both of them in their debuts, I think with LeBron James, it maybe makes it a little bit more like, I have to see it. This is something that is truly special, once in a lifetime opportunity.
So it's more of a must-see, break open the piggy bank. Even though LeBron is only going to play 15 minutes or so, it's still something that you just want to be a part of. Whereas Lonzo, it's a little bit more curiosity. Let's see the kind of next big thing, but you don't really know for sure what you're going to get, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, the whole LeBron addition has obviously brought a lot of attention to the Lakers. It's brought a lot of pressure to the young guys to perform, and we've seen both good and bad during these first two preseason games. Oh, it's too early. I can't talk, Anna. So these guys have had some really great moments, some moments where you just sit back and go, wow, this is great. There was a moment during the first quarter during last night's game where they just had everything clicking. They were getting stops on defense. They were getting out and running. It was everything that we thought that this year's Lakers were going to be. But then they also had a lot of struggles. And right now they're 0-2. Now, I don't worry too much about record in the preseason, but they have lost their first two preseason games to the Denver Nuggets. And last night they lost to a Denver team that was missing their starting backcourt. No Jamal Murray, no Gary Harris. So I thought today what we can do, even though it's early, even though it's preseason, we can kind of go through some of the best and worst of what we've seen so far with the disclaimer that, hey, it's only 2 games in preseason. This doesn't necessarily mean we're writing guys off or that we're singing anyone's praises too much. But I still think at this point we can at least evaluate some of what's gone on. So let's get into it. Hannah, who stood out to you so far in these first two preseason games in a positive way?
You know what? And I can't even believe I am saying this, but my player of the game in both of these first preseason games, obviously LeBron's been excellent, but my real player of the game has been JaVale McGee. He started in the first game on Sunday night against Denver. He had 17 points, 6 rebounds, and last night he was just as good. He had 15 points, 8 rebounds in just 19 minutes. But I mean, I guess we say just 19 minutes, but for him, that's actually kind of double the time that he's used to playing. And when he's been out there, the Lakers have looked their best. In my opinion, their defense has been totally fine when he's been out there. He's been actually a great rim protector. He's been really great at running the floor. We've seen some really exciting lobs thrown to him. He's played with a lot of energy. In my opinion, the biggest problem for the Lakers is when he has come out, and we obviously don't have a center, which I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, so I don't want to talk too much about that. But for these first two games, JaVale McGee has been very impressive. And honestly, when the Lakers signed him, I thought, it's a good signing. I can understand why they'd be interested in him. We need a center. But I am pretty darn happy we signed him now after seeing him these first two games. He looks great.
Oh, he has far exceeded expectations. I mean, he had 5 blocks against the Denver Nuggets in the second game as well. He's doing a great job at just keeping things simple when he's out there. It's catch, finish, catch, finish. He's that lob target. He's rolling hard to the rim. He is running the floor hard. He's trying to beat Nikola Jokic down the floor every single time. And a few times he has. We've seen the Lakers throwing some touchdown passes to him over the top, and then he's able to finish. I mean, he has played tremendously well, better than I ever would have. This is the JaVale McGee that everybody thought they were going to see 5 years ago. When he was a real consideration to be a starter in the NBA, this is what people thought they were going to see from him, with the athleticism, the ability to run the floor, all of these things put together. This is the guy that we thought we'd be seeing. It seems like he's been unleashed here in Los Angeles. Now, will this keep up? I mean, we don't really know. You mentioned that this is about double the minutes that he's played. Yeah, I mean, the past 5 seasons, he's averaged a total of about 10 minutes per game. Now, he said after the game last night that he wants to play about 30 minutes. Can he do that? I don't know. Can he maintain that same effectiveness? I don't know. I think about guys like say, Jordan Hill or Ronny Turiaf, right? Blast from the past with the Lakers, where they were bigs who excelled in short bursts, but then when they got a longer stretch of minutes, they started to wear down. And I hope that's not going to be the case with JaVale, because he has been critical to the team's success so far. He's just bringing that energy, everything that you want to see out of a rim running center right now. Hannah, I have noticed such a stark difference between JaVale and Brook Lopez after watching Brook Lopez all of last season. What do you think the shift is, and are you picking up on that as well?
I have as well. I think the difference between JaVale McGee and Brook Lopez, and nothing really to go against Brook Lopez. I like him. He's a nice guy. But I just think for our team, I don't know. I feel like JaVale McGee is just that perfect rim protector, that guy who's, we are able to kind of throw those lobs to, make it exciting again. That's not really the type of style that Brook Lopez plays. I know a lot of Laker fans wanted us to go out and get DeAndre Jordan this summer, which wasn't necessarily my top of the list, but I think getting JaVale McGee is, obviously he's not as talented maybe as DeAndre Jordan, but he's kind of like a little bit of that, mini DeAndre Jordan, if you will, and that he's just a very exciting player to watch. He's a great rim protector. He's great at, getting to the basket. It's exciting to watch him dunk in, and I'm sure I even tweeted last night, I know it's only the second preseason game, but man, it's fun to watch him out there, especially with Rondo throwing some of those lobs, man, and when Lonzo comes back too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Brook Lopez, and I think he took a lot of flack, right, for not rebounding well. And I think people are starting to realize now, these first two preseason games, we've seen the Lakers struggle on the boards. Brook Lopez would do a great job boxing out so the Lakers guards could rebound, and that was his main focus, even if he wasn't grabbing the board himself. But he had gravity on the offensive end in a very different way than what we're seeing now from JaVale McGee. And I knew we were going to see this kind of gravity from JaVale, but not to this degree. And here's what I'm talking about. Brook Lopez would stretch the floor. you had to defend him behind the 3-point line. He would stand out there. So he's pulling defenders out. JaVale McGee has gravity as well, and that means that he's pulling defensive attention towards him, but he's doing that when he rolls to the rim. He's not doing that by stepping out behind the arc. So when he dives to the basket, you're seeing other teams, you're seeing the Denver Nuggets particularly scramble to try to send guys to him in order to stop that lob pass. And then that's opening up other things for the Lakers. Now, they're not always making the right read in that. And that's part of just being a new team. Right now, you're not seeing the Lakers consistently hit the open man that's popping open when JaVale rolls, and then you've got all these defenders converging on the paint to try to stop him. But the point is that the guys are popping open when JaVale is rolling to the rim because he is such a big threat, because he is so good at just catching and finishing and keeping it simple. He's the Clint Capella style, DeAndre Jordan, like you said. He's more that style center. And so far, it's working out real well, and I think it's going to be absolutely deadly when the Lakers figure out where the help defense is coming from so that they can hit that open man. And I thought, and I guess we can just go ahead and get into them right now, I thought they did a better job last night than they did in the first game of hitting Rondo, because frequently the help row was coming from Rondo's defender. And I was really impressed with what Rondo was able to do when his defender helped off of him in terms of his shooting.
Yeah, Rondo has honestly, in my opinion, been the second best player probably for the Lakers. We saw last night in 21 minutes, he had 11 points, 7 assists, 2 rebounds. The first game, he only had 2 points, but he had 11 assists and 7 rebounds, which led the Lakers in both of those categories. When Rajon Rondo has been out there on the floor, he's been exciting to watch. And that's why it gets me so excited for when Lonzo Ball comes back, because I think having those two guys right now, you know, even though it is the preseason, it's too hard for me to kind of make this big assessment on the team because we don't have Lonzo Ball back, and he's going to be such a big piece. But when Rondo is out on the floor, it's exciting to watch. You know, guys are making their shots. They're getting open looks. He's throwing great passes. Like you said, you know, maybe the first night he struggled. He didn't really shoot the ball as much. But last night he had 11 points. He shot some threes. He looked just really confident out there. So I've been really excited from what I've seen from Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, he's been a leader both when he's on the court and when he's off. He's been instructing the young guys and really talking guys up in the huddle. He's been coaching up the team quite a bit. He has goals to become a general manager someday or a coach someday, and you can totally see it, right? He is just that quarterback out there on the floor, and it's tremendous. I love his passing. Obviously, there was a number of passes last night where he just threw them from weird angles that you weren't expecting. You don't know how they got through, but they somehow did. His shooting has been the big concern, though, and I tweeted about this before the game. Rondo is a better shooter than he gets credit for. He's really, really, really close to league average from 3. And if he can do that, if he can just raise up a couple of percentage points, then it's worth having him shoot those open threes. Denver was giving those to him, and last night he hit him. He was 3 for 3 from behind the arc. And when I made a comment on Twitter about, you know, how important it is that Rondo takes those threes, I had Keith Smith, who's been on the show, a salary cap expert. He's a Celtics guy, and he said, look, you know, everywhere that Rondo has gone, it's been the same story. Everybody said, yes, he needs to take those shots. Yes, it opens up the offense for the team, but he just doesn't do it consistently. So that's going to be something that we really need to watch. I don't know if it's really going to happen, but I hope, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, I hope the Lakers urge him to continue shooting those threes, because to me, it's going to make such a big difference for the team's offense overall.
Exactly. And the thing about Rondo is maybe he isn't the best shooter around, but when it matters, when the game is on the line, when it's the playoff time, when it's crunch time, he's going to make the shots. We saw him last season for the New Orleans Pelicans really be that leader, and he shot great from three-point range last season in the postseason for the Pelicans, and he was actually, you know, the big catalyst to why they were able to kind of, you know, go into the second round. Ultimately, they lost to Golden State, but I mean, it's Golden State. But when the time counts and when it really matters, Rajon Rondo is going to make the shot, and I'm not super concerned with Rondo's shooting, honestly, at the moment. And from what I've seen, he's looked fine out there. And I think, you know, if we need him to shoot more, I think Rondo will shoot more. I think it's just he's really good at being able to read the team, obviously, and whatever we're going to need from him, he's going to be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, he's not been good. I guess we should be clear there. But overall, I've been pleased with what we've seen from Rondo. Luke Walton made some comments last night about how he wants to see a more consistent playing style. And I think that's something that Rondo can do, right? When you've got Lonzo Ball and Rajon Rondo, I'm not saying they're the same player because they're not. Lonzo is light years ahead of Rondo as a defender right now. But they can play a similar style on the offensive end. We've seen Rondo throw some hit-ahead passes, so you're going to have more consistency. Think back to last season. It was Lonzo Ball going warp speed, throwing hit-ahead passes, all of that good stuff. And then when the reserves came in, you're switching to Alex Caruso, you're switching to Tyler Ennis, who play a very different style of game. I think Rondo and Lonzo can mimic each other's playing style enough to where you can have a consistent attack from the Lakers where it's going to make the team a little bit more interchangeable. Whereas last season you saw a starting five and then you had a bench five and you couldn't really intermix them too much because they played such a different style. So I'm excited to see how that whole dynamic plays out because I think we can see a more consistent attack from the Lakers this season with Rondo in there. We're going to take a quick break to talk about your credit. Have you ever looked at your credit card statement and been shocked by the interest rate? I know I was. When I was in my early 20s, I got into credit card debt, didn't quite understand how it all worked, and I fell into the trap that a lot of people in this country do, and I overspent. And then I wound up with a mountain of debt and no way to really pay it all back. Well, I was fortunate to work with some credit card consolidation companies that really helped me out, and Lightstream can do just that for you. You can actually roll all of your credit card debt into one monthly payment at a lower fixed interest rate. Lightstream offers credit card consolidation loans from just 5.89% APR with autopay. That's lower than the average credit card interest rate of over 18% APR. You can get a loan from $5,000 to $100,000, and you can even get your funds as soon as the day you apply. Lightstream believes that people with good credit deserve a great interest rate and no fees. And here's the part I really love. Lightstream plants a tree with every loan they fund. So you're not just helping fix your credit situation, you're also helping the environment, and that's a great thing. My listeners even get a special discount on top of Lightstream's already low rates. And the way you get that discount is to go to lightstream.com/Lakers. That's LIGHTSTREAM.com/Lakers. Subject to credit approval. Rates include 0.5% auto pay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Again, visit lightstream.com/Lakers for more information. Anybody else that you were really impressed with, Hannah?
You know what? I have to talk about Josh Hart because something happened last night that I was very excited about, and I know a lot of Laker fans were excited about as well. Josh Hart actually got the start last night, and I know we had all kind of talked about this, and we had said, could Josh Hart be the Lakers' starting shooting guard? And we all felt, yes, this is definitely a possibility, but I don't think anyone really saw it happening kind of right away. Obviously, it is just the preseason, and Luke Walton has already said that he really wants to experiment with his lineup. So, it could have been to do with that, or it could have been the fact that KCP has been pretty darn horrible and really awful to watch these first preseason games. His first game, he was 0 for 5 from the field. He didn't even make a field goal. So, last night he wasn't too much better, but maybe Luke Walton just figured, you know what, we've got to switch it up, go with Josh Hart. And I was really proud and excited that he did this, honestly, because I think Josh Hart deserves it. And even though obviously KCP struggled these 2 first preseason games, he's not a bad player, but in my opinion, I just think Josh Hart is better. And I think that Josh Hart obviously has so much more potential to be better that if it comes down to it, I would like to see him get more minutes than KCP. I think that's more important for us at the moment. So I was happy that Josh Hart got the start last night. And obviously, he played pretty well. His shooting wasn't too impressive, but he still finished with 14 points, which was easily, I don't know if it was the Lakers team high, but it was definitely very close. I know because JaVale had a few more, but it was definitely, it was definitely very close. He had 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and something that Luke Walton actually said after the game, and something that I really do agree with, is that Josh Hart is great at doing the dirty things. He's great at fighting over screens, grabbing rebounds, and he brings a lot of toughness and kind of gives his team an edge, which is what we need, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah, you know what, Hart. When you're looking at it, okay, Luke started Josh Hart. Is that gonna stick? I don't know. I mean, Luke has talked about playing around with lineups and everything, and it seemed like KCP was the guy who had the inside track to become the team starter. But then he pretty much no-showed the first game, right? He was invisible in that performance, and so okay, Josh Hart gets an opportunity here. And I mentioned this before the game. I said, look, Josh Hart, this is a chance for him. This is an opportunity for him to prove that he should start. If starting is something that matters to him, it probably is. But again, we've talked about, finishing games is more important and all that sort of stuff, and that's still true. But if Josh Hart wants to be a starter, this is a great chance for him to at least get a leg up on KCP and kind of wrestle away some of the control. And he did just that. He went out and he took that game as though this was his chance. And man, did he take advantage of it. I mean, that you mentioned his stat line, super impressive. I loved the way he finished at the rim. He's contorting his body yet still maintaining control, and he's able to finish. He took 13 shots, which is a lot. It was more than any other starter. It was only 2 of 8 from 3, but we know he's a really good three-point shooter. We know he's probably a little bit better than he was last night from there. I thought defensively he did just fine. Thought he was switching out pretty well, flying all over the court. I thought that his handle looked good, which is something that he's worked on over the summer. I liked his ability to drop passes. I mean, he had 4 assists on the night. Overall, just a nice, steady, controlled, all-around performance from Josh Hart. And that's exactly what you want to see from the team starting two-guard when you're going to be starting alongside guys like Ingram, like LeBron James, like Lonzo Ball, that they're going to bring this energy. Sometimes you need that player who can just be consistent and make the right play. I don't want to say he's the same because he's not. Plays a very, very different style. But I kind of have a little bit of like a Derek Fisher vibe from Josh Hart right now.
I can understand where you see that. I mean, I can always appreciate a little bit of a D-Fish vibe going on. But yeah, I mean, Josh Hart is just an incredible player, and I continue to be impressed by how versatile he is. Obviously, when the Lakers drafted him and, throughout his college career, and just, people always thought he was just this 3-and-D player. And that would have been fine because we need some 3-and-D. But he's proved to be so much more than that. And just how versatile he is at, like you said, getting to the rim, creating his own shot. I'm so impressed by him, and I'm so excited to see him continue to progress this season, because if you think about how much he's improved, between this time last season and to where we are now, it's just pretty exciting. And I know just if he gets more minutes, he continues to get consistent minutes, he's going to be an amazing player.
Hannah, has Josh Hart improved more than any of the other Lakers young players? I'm not saying that he's better than them, because I don't think his ceiling isn't as high as Ingram or Lonzo's or Kuzma's. I don't think he's in that tier. But in terms of his own skill set and that of being an extremely valuable role player, do you think he's grown more than the other guys have?
Well, do you know what I think is the biggest, reason we can say maybe he's improved so much is just the fact that he's been able to get some more consistent minutes. Obviously last season, to start out the season, and even during the summer league, actually, he was injured. So he didn't really get too many playing time because he was injured. So he didn't really have, the start of the season to kind of solidify a role with this team. And we didn't really see him start to get some more consistent minutes until the beginning of this past year, in like kind of January, February-ish. And that was when we really saw him start to take his game to that next level and really start to improve with those consistent minutes.
Yeah, it's something where he's grown. He's taken advantage of the opportunities that he's been presented with, and we'll see what happens going forward from here. But I feel like at this point, he's got a stranglehold on that starting shooting guard spot. I don't know if it's going to end that way, because KCP, let me tell you, KCP, a lot of people are down on him right now. And I know we're not into the negative part just yet. We're not into we're doing best and worst here today. We're not into the worst part just yet, because KCP is certainly on that list. But he's better than what he's shown. And we'll get into why in just a minute. But he's certainly better than what he's shown. So I don't think this battle is over. But did Josh Hart just step up and put himself in the driver's seat to be the team's starting two guard. So I've been really impressed with him, and we'll see what he can do from here on out. We need to talk about LeBron. We have to talk about LeBron. I mean, he's on my best list in terms of best and worst from what we've seen. And I feel like he's on the best list without trying. I mean, he's giving He's giving minimal at best effort, and he's on the best list because he's just that good. I mean, you can see it out there on the floor. That thunderous dunk that he had on the breakaway, what was that like in person, Hannah?
Oh my gosh, I literally jumped. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, but everyone in Staples Center was. It was funny because there were some times in the game last night where I was just screaming and, jumping up and down. And you're like, I shouldn't do that. But you look around and everyone is to their feet. They're jumping up and down. They're high-fiving everyone. And when LeBron made that dunk, I mean, that was just almost like I'm here. I made it. That was kind of like that reality check where we're like, we have a LeBron James. Like, this is going to be a normal thing for us now. LeBron is obviously, and I think you said it best, he's been putting in, besides that amazing dunk, he hasn't been giving it, this preseason 150% because he doesn't need to. He can give it, 70%, even 60, 50%.
I don't even think he's given that.
He can give it like 20%, 10%, whatever, and he's still going to be the best player on the floor. Last night, he only played 15 minutes. He very easily got 13 points. He was 5 for 6 from the field. He had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. I mean, he's still filled up the stat sheet, barely even trying.
Yeah, I mean, you watch him on the defensive end. He was barely rotating. He was just kind of going through the motions. He's pulling away from contact when he's driving. He's kicking the ball out. Here's what he's doing. He's playing like, and I've coached a bit. He's playing like when you're coaching a team full of like junior high school kids. Mm-hmm. And the coach steps out and he plays in a scrimmage with the kids. That's how he's playing, where you're passing the ball and trying to set up the kids, just trying to get them shots. You're not worried about taking your own shot or anything because you're the one that's better than everybody else. You're older, you're stronger, you're faster, all those things. He's doing that. Basically, he's just trying to pass the ball. He picked up a few turnovers last night because he's overpassing. All he's trying to do is get the other guys going when he's out there. And then every once in a while, he just turns on the switch for, 5 seconds or whatever, pulls up, drains a 3, whatever. Okay, come back down, do it all again. And it's just, he's in cruise control, right? It's like he's running out of gas and he's going downhill. Right, that's the mode that he's in right now. His foot is completely off the gas pedal. He's coasting and he's just having a good time. And it's impressive because you know what he's doing out there. You know that he's not putting forth full effort, and you know that's on purpose because it's preseason and none of this matters in terms of the regular season record. And he's still efficient. He's still able to get the job done. It's really impressive, and I can't wait to see when he actually does really go all out when the regular season starts.
Exactly. And that is why I can't get too upset about these 2 losses. Obviously, as a fan, I want them to win every time they play, no matter if it's just a practice game. I want them to win. But we have to remember LeBron isn't even trying right now. So it's just going to be so exciting once we have him going full force, once we have, all of these players playing more consistent minutes and playing bigger minutes. And we have Lonzo back and he's, has a few games under his belt and he's back into his groove. It's going to be a really exciting team to watch.
Okay, let's wrap up the best column here. We've got a couple of guys left to talk about. Real quick, Brandon Ingram. I thought he was quiet in the second game, last night's game against the Nuggets, but that was because of foul trouble. I still think he's been the second best player on the team so far. I've been really impressed by what I've seen from him. Last night he had a great drive with his right hand and then a very, very nice drop-off pass to JaVale McGee. Very few players his size can do that. We've been saying it all summer that this was his season to really break out, his 3rd season in the league. And so far it seems like he's going to do that.
Yeah, Brandon Ingram, obviously, last night, like you said, he had a little bit more of a quiet night. The first game, though, he had 16 points, so we saw him get his points the first night. I've really liked what I've seen from Brandon Ingram, him playing off the ball. I think he's been, much more kind of aggressive and energized. He's been, running. He's been getting to the basket. He's been playing aggressive. So I've been impressed by what I've seen from Brandon Ingram as well. I will say his outside shot hasn't looked that it's maybe game ready right now. I mean, I just think it's going to take a little bit of time. It's just the preseason. He has to just play more and, take more shots and stuff. His outside shot has looked not fully there, but I'm not too concerned about that because that's just something that's going to come as the season progresses.
Right. Yeah. The outside shot we haven't seen a whole lot of, but you know what? Again, preseason, we're just seeing little bursts from him right now. Last guy, Lance Stephenson. Lance, Lance has been, I mean, he's feast or famine. He drives me nuts a little bit with his shot selection, shooting a lot of mid-range jumper, which has been a problem, I think, for the second unit in general. Has been taking a lot of contested mid-range jumpers. But man, he's fun when he gets going, isn't he?
Yeah, it's hard for me because I like Lance Stephenson. I like that he plays with so much toughness, and he kind of looks like, at any second he might just like freak out, and I kind of like that. But I will say, Lance Stephenson, it's funny because for a guy, he isn't really known as a scorer, but yet he's been, putting his shots up. In the first game, he was 5 for 6 from the floor. I will say that I do find, and it's kind of the same thing with him and Michael Beasley, and I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit more as well. When he is on the floor, I do find the ball movement kind of stop, and I see, him just kind of look to maybe take, get more of his points and stuff. But again, I can't really assess that too much because when he is on the floor, 99.9% of the time, there isn't another point guard out there on the floor with him as well. So I'm sure it's going to be different when Lonzo is back and he's playing with that second unit, or Rondo's with that second unit, whoever it is. Right now, he may just have to just take the shots and stuff. But I will say that when he's on the floor, I have seen the ball movement for the Lakers kind of stop.
Yeah, I mean, he does a nice job running out on the break. That's the one thing that I really like seeing him do. It's exciting when he gets going, when he starts high-stepping out there. But you're right, the ball movement does kind of stop. We do have to factor in that in the second game, he was playing with the South Bay Lakers. Right? I mean, that was the lineup around him. We had Joel Berry, we had Isaac Bonga, you had Travis Ware, and who was the other guy that was out there with him? Jonathan Williams. So you had those four out there on the floor with him. So he kind of had to create for himself in that situation. But still, yeah, the ball movement has been a concern. Again, the shot selection is a concern. There's times when I'm sure this season Lance Stephenson is going to have me pulling my hair out because he's going to take a contested 20-footer when the Lakers really need a good look, and it's just going to be the wrong play completely. I wouldn't be surprised if he eventually starts losing minutes to guys like Svi once he gets his legs under him. But for right now, I'm enjoying Lance out on the break. And I think his debut has at least been better than anticipated. I think expectations were pretty low for him, and he's shown to be a little bit better than people thought. So I put him in the best column for that. But again, I'm still very, very hesitant about Lance overall long term.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't really have too much expectations for him too. I mean, like you mentioned, if Svi is able to kind of get some playing time and show him it can be a consistent 3-point shooter, which I think he will be. I'm not necessarily sure, how many minutes Lance Stephenson and Michael Beasley are going to be playing in general. But so far, it's been nice to see Lance make some baskets for sure.
All right, so let's get into the worst side now. So the guys that we need to see a little bit more from, the guys who have kind of struggled. And I think at the top of the list, unfortunately, we got to go with my guy, Ivica Zubac. We have to talk about these struggles that he's had.
Trevor, I am so frustrated with Zubac because I'm rooting for him so much. I want him to be that player that Laker fans, and I'm sure the front office were expecting him to be when they drafted him, and we saw him have that really exciting summer league right before his rookie season and even during his rookie season when he played pretty well. But
he was good.
Yeah, and I was so excited about it. But he has just looked all out of sorts. He's been, a step too slow for every play, especially on the defensive end. In the second game, he was a little bit better. That first game was, pretty much a disaster, and he was like a total 0. But the second game, he was a little better. He had, I think, 9 points. He shot 4 for 5 from the field, so that was fine. But his defense has still been something that has been such a struggle, and it's so frustrating because I feel like he has so much potential, and I don't know if it's just that he gets a little lazy out there, or he gets confused, or maybe it just because he's young and the inexperienced, but it's just really frustrating for me, and especially for the Lakers because we are so, thin at this center position, and that is really going to be one of our biggest struggles is the center position. This is such a great opportunity for Zubac to really step up, and he could be, the backup center. He could be our entire bench center and be playing really heavy minutes, but it's just if he keeps playing like this, it's not going to end well for him, and I don't see the Lakers, doing that. So I think this preseason is really important because for the Lakers, they really have two choices when it comes to this center position. They either need to give Zubac a lot of playing time to really figure out if he's going to be able to contribute once the season starts. But if he isn't able to perform, or if they're unwilling to do that and they just think, listen, Zoo is just not the guy we thought he's going to be, then they're going to have to go out and sign someone, because the center position is obviously something that the Lakers are really struggling with. But I've been very disappointed in Zubac, because this is a great opportunity for him, and I don't know why he's just not stepping up.
Yeah, you know what? Zoo in the first game, he looked nervous, right? He lost weight during the offseason, so he should be more mobile. He looked really good for Croatia in FIBA play. He did a really nice job there. The first game, obviously, he mishandled the ball on a pick and roll situation, and just looked like he was nervous to be out there playing against Nikola Jokic and all of that, right? Fine. Second game comes around, and I thought he did just fine offensively. I was actually really pleased with what I saw from him there. He made quick, decisive moves to the rim. I thought he showed his soft touch. He even hit a little 15-foot jumper. All of those things that we were hoping that he'd be able to do, he did. No problem. Perfect. The problem was the other end. The problem was defensively, he completely lost Plumlee a number of times, right? And you could see what he was trying to do. He's trying to wall off the court. And Plumlee was doing exactly what he should, and that was he was kind of hiding himself right underneath the basket, right along the baseline. We've seen Timofey Mozgov has done this in the past, Tyson Chandler, players like this. They're kind of hiding themselves out of play, trying to get out of the line of sight of their defender so that when one of their guards gets into the paint and the big has to rotate over, they're right there just to catch a lob and finish, and the other team is struggling to figure out where they're at and adapt to that. The Lakers did a horrible job dealing with Plumlee because he was doing just that, and because Zoo was stepping up into the paint, trying to wall off that side of the floor, which isn't bad, but he was losing track of where Plumlee was, and so he's giving up all these easy dunks. So that was a big problem. And that's not just on Zoo. There were a few times where he had to rotate over to cut off a guard, and then the Lakers didn't react quickly enough to have somebody drop down onto Plumlee and prevent that entry pass. So again, not completely on him, but he did a poor job overall of his positioning, did a poor job recognizing where the ball was going to be going, trying to cut off the pass, any of that. So that's something that has to change. And as you mentioned, if it doesn't change, well, the Lakers have a roster spot open. They do. They've got a 15th roster spot. They've got that open. It feels like they need another center. This was our concern heading into this. And it's only 2 games of preseason. There's plenty of time for them to still figure it out. But it feels like they do need another center. At this point, I think it's early to go run out and grab somebody. I think you wait until roster cutdowns. And maybe you can get through part of the season and you wait for somebody to get waived. I mean, we think about what happened with Andrew Bogut last year. But to me, I'm going to be watching Zoo a ton these next couple of games because I'm getting worried, and I think we may be just about at the point where the Lakers have to go digging through the barrel and trying to find another center.
Yeah, my biggest concern is, God forbid, something happened to JaVale McGee.
Exactly.
And we all know, he's not the most durable guy. He very rarely is able to make it through an entire season. He's a little fragile. So if something happens to JaVale McGee, we are in serious trouble. And I mean, obviously, Denver has a great center in Jokic and stuff, and not every team is going to have this big center. A lot of teams now are playing a little bit more of that small ball lineup, but still, if something happens to JaVale McGee, we're in trouble. Yeah,
I mean, that's a great point, right? The Denver Nuggets are a difficult team to defend from the center spot. You've got not just Jokic, but Plumlee as well, right? You've got these two guys who can both cause problems, who can both create mismatches. That's tough. So that's certainly a fair observation that maybe it's just Denver's really, really good in the middle, right? That's certainly part of this equation here. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out moving forward. This leads us into our conversation about a guy that I know you weren't happy to see on my worst list, Kyle Kuzma. I put him in there. Not that he's been bad, but I feel like Kuz has not adjusted well. And again, it's super early, but I don't think he's adjusted well to playing that center spot just yet.
Well, listen, Trevor, let me defend Kyle Kuzma a little bit, because Kyle Kuzma on a worse list, like, are you trying to kill me? No, but honestly, I haven't been super impressed by him as well. But you know what? He spent most of the offseason training to be more of a small forward.
Right.
And now he's suddenly finding himself playing center, where he really, I mean, obviously, I'm a big Kyle Kuzma fan. I will, fight for him to the death. But him versus Jokic, it's just not going to end well for him. I mean, I know that, so that's just, for him, it's frustrating because, I expect such great things from Kyle Kuzma. I know you do. I know fans do. And it's just hard because when you're not used to playing a position, it just takes you all kind of out of sorts. And we've seen that with Kyle Kuzma. He's just kind of all over the place. He just doesn't really, know exactly. He's just still trying to figure it out. He just has never played center before, and he isn't familiar with that role, and he's trying to accept it because that's who Kyle Kuzma is. He'll take whatever the Lakers can give him to give him minutes and stuff. But I really hope moving forward they don't keep playing him in the center, because I want Kuzma to be able to shine, and I just don't see that happening when he's, playing center, and he's going to keep getting destroyed by these big centers night after night.
Yeah, it definitely feels like when he was on the floor at the 4, he's just so much more comfortable. And that's a little bit of a challenge, though, because LeBron James is going to eat up most of the minutes at the 4. So what do you do with Kuzma? I also feel like we haven't seen the growth from him that we were hearing about during the summer. Not yet, anyway. We were hearing all about his 3-a-day workouts. Clint Parks talked to us a little bit about that and just how much he's grown, how much better he is. Kuzma himself was saying he's so much better as a player. We've kind of seen the same Kuzma so far. He's still kind of chucking up some shots, and he hasn't really shown growth yet. And that doesn't mean that he hasn't grown, because I'm sure he has. We just haven't had an opportunity to see it just yet. And I think a lot of it does come down to his issues adjusting to the center position. It reminds me, Hannah, I don't know if you like this movie or not, but one of my favorite movies is Moneyball. Have you seen that one?
I've never seen it, no.
Okay, so Moneyball is a movie with Brad Pitt, and it's essentially bringing analytics into the world of baseball. Okay, with the Oakland A's, and he's trying to field this roster of players that they think can compete. It's got Jonah Hill in it as well. He does a tremendous job in this movie, and they're trying to put together a roster on a very limited budget that can compete with some of the big spending teams in Major League Baseball. And so they're trying to put together this island of misfit toys style lineup. And Brad Pitt is playing Billy Beane, who's a real general manager in baseball. And so he's working on putting this team together, and they find this guy, Scott Hatteberg, who was a catcher his entire career. And then they convince him to switch to first base because they feel like that's going to help the lineup the most. And he's played by Chris Pratt. Scott Hatteberg is played by Chris Pratt and does an amazing job. And a big part of the storyline is him trying to learn how to play first base. And it's just a comedy of errors. And he's scared to death about trying to make this transition and all these. That's Kuzma right now. That's Kyle Kuzma. You've asked him to go play it's not like he's moving from power forward to small forward, right? Like, that's an adjustment you could make. But from power forward to center against some of the best in the league, that is a whole different world in terms of what your responsibilities are on the defensive end. And you're not asking him just to hop in there for a couple of minutes. You're asking him to do it for a lot of minutes every single night. It's going to be a transition for him. So I guess, long story short, patience with Kuz at the center position. I think it's going to take time. So far, though, the results haven't been promising, but it's such a steep learning curve that I'm not going to just write that off altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not writing off Kuzma, Trevor, let's be honest. But I'm really
writing
hoping
him off as a center. I still think
do
that.
I don't want him to be the center because, I mean, like you've said, it's just totally out of his ballpark, and it's just totally out of the realm of what he's ever done in his career. And it's just such a big learning curve, especially for a guy who, is only going into his second year. It's just too much, I think. And I mean, these are the minutes that he's pretty much gotten all the entire preseason is playing that center position. We saw Beasley maybe a tiny bit kind of play it a little bit as well, but for Kuzma, that's just not his role. I understand, it's hard because he's a forward playing on a team with LeBron James and Brandon Ingram, but I'm hopeful that the Lakers are going to be able to try to figure something out, because moving forward, this is not the role that I want Kyle Kuzma to be in.
No, yeah, I don't think it's as bad, but When you look at the Lakers, right, if you're keeping Kuzma and you're running LeBron as your 4, you've got to find minutes for Kuzma. And I guess this is one way to do that, is using him as a center. But I don't know that it's going to work long term. And I can tell you this, I was on Randall Island. I was a big Julius Randle fan. Watching Kyle Kuzma play center is making me miss Julius Randle that much more, because you see he's giving up the strength. You see he's being put into an uncomfortable position, and you can envision what Randle would have been in that spot. I really wish they had come up with a way to retain him. You mentioned Michael Beasley. I thought he's kind of struggled. He's not making the difficult shots that we've come to know him to make. I think if and when that changes, maybe Beasley can get going. But I don't know. Right now, I haven't been super impressed with what we've seen from Michael Beasley.
Michael Beasley has, and I know it's a preseason, so no one come at me for this, but he's been a disaster. He's been, like a complete zero for me. When he's been on the floor, he isn't making his shots. His defense is kind of like how it always is, which is, pretty much nothing. When he's out there, the ball movement completely stops. I was actually saying to myself last night, I'm like, oh my gosh, every single time he has the ball, he's either just going to go one-on-one or he's just going to shoot it. I don't think he passes once. The ball movement completely stops. Again, if that has to do with the fact that most of the time when he's out there, we don't really have a true point guard out there. I don't know. That could be different once Lonzo or Rondo's on the floor with him. But for right now, from what I've seen from Michael Beasley, I have not been impressed. And if he keeps playing like this, because the Lakers have such a deep roster, there's going to be one or two players that are going to be left out of the mix. That just is what it is. And if Beasley keeps playing like this through the preseason, he isn't really giving the coaching staff any reason to find him minutes this season.
Which it's not that big of a deal because he's on such a minimal contract. It's not that big of a deal if Beasley doesn't end up being what they hoped he would be. I still think there's hope for him, especially like you mentioned, when he's out there with a true point guard. That's going to change things for him quite a bit. Right, when Beasley's getting put in the right spots, we know he can score. He just hasn't in this small sample size. But so far, he hasn't looked great. Hopefully that will change, though, as things get going. The other guy we got to talk about, KCP. Obviously, he struggled. He's essentially been invisible. I thought he had one nice shot last night. And I don't remember who passed it to him. I want to say it was Rondo. He was coming down the floor. He stepped into a three. He rose up. He looked strong. His form looked good. Everything about it looked like KCP from January on last season, right? That was that one flash that we saw. Other than that, his shot has looked off. His defense has not been great. His ball handling has been really bad. He's looked really shaky handling the ball. And we heard from Magic that he's killing it in practice, that he looks like a completely different player, that he's changed his diet. He looks so good. Right now, I feel like just as much as Josh Hart has excelled to sort of take control of that race for the starting two-guard spot, I feel like KCP has done everything he can to just hand it to him by doing nothing out on the floor, or just about nothing so far.
Yeah, I completely agree. KCP is one of those guys, and like we keep saying, it's only the preseason. This is not the best. This is not who KCP really is. He's a better player than this, obviously, but he's just been, I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's, maybe kind of trying to do a LeBron James and not putting in as much effort because it's just the preseason, but he's not LeBron James, so he needs to put in the effort. I don't know what his problem is, but he's just looked like he's just kind of not in the game. And we saw that, the first game he was 0 for 5 from the floor. He didn't have a single field goal. We saw him last night. He had 6 points. I actually remember that one shot, that 3-point shot that you mentioned earlier, because I remember being like, finally, there's KCP. Thank goodness, finally. But that was really the only thing we saw where we had this little glimmer of, oh, KCP's on the floor. Because other than that, it was like he was completely invisible out there. He was only 2 for 7 from the floor. He was 1 for 4 behind the arc, which was that shot that we were just talking about. KCP, moving forward, we're going to need him to step up and make the shots. And I'm not concerned because this is the preseason, so I don't know what his problem is. Maybe he's not putting in full effort or something. Who knows with him? But yeah, if the Lakers if they're going to be successful this season, he's going to have to step it up, because we got him, or we brought him back to be that wing player for LeBron James, to just make his threes. And if he's not going to make them, the Lakers may have some problems this year. But talking about, too, what you said, that Magic said he's been killing it in practice, that is why I think the preseason is so important because practice is one thing. And there's been so many players. We even had a few years ago, Wesley Johnson, who apparently was like the best player during practice for the Lakers. And, we all know what happened when he got on the floor during a regular game. So practice is really practice. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do in practice. It matters what you do in the game. So hopefully these next few preseason games, KCP kind of gets it together a little bit. He can't do any worse than how he's already done, honestly, though.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? We talk about Zubats, and Zoo, I'm more worried about than KCP. Even though it's been a tiny sample size for Zoo, I'm still optimistic about him. I still think he's got some good qualities. I still think he can be a player in the league, right? But Zoo, we saw struggle all of last season. KCP's had 5 seasons in the NBA where he's shown what he can do. This is a 2-game sample size, right? We know that KCP is not the guy that we've seen so far, right? So there's a mountain of evidence suggesting that KCP is better than what we've seen here. Zubats, there's not, right? So I'm more worried about Zoo than I am KCP right now. I think KCP will turn it around, but he's struggled more than I thought he would. He's struggling to adjust to the changing lineup around him. He's struggling to adjust to new schemes defensively. I thought that he was going to come in and hit the ground running, that he was going to feast on open 3-pointers, that all of these things were going to really work out, that he was going to be tremendous defensively, that he was going to be able to put a little bit more energy into the defensive end because he wasn't going to have to create much at all on offense because other guys were going to be doing that for him. And so far, none of that has really happened. But again, tiny sample size. I still think KCP is going to be just fine long term. My only thing for him is that how far behind has he put himself in these 2 games so far? How far back from Josh Hart, if he really wants to be the starter, if it matters? Is KCP really good as a starter, but then not so much off the bench? That's some questions that we're going to have to answer. But for right now, what we've seen from him hasn't been good. Again, is that going to last? No. I think at some point, things are going to click with KCP and we're going to see him get back on track. I'm hoping it's going to be in the next game. And then we have a real battle for this 2-guard spot because that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I would love to see KCP, finally step it up. And that's why I was so excited about Josh Hart getting this starting spot last night because I was hoping it was going to kind of light a little bit of a fire under KCP's butt. Obviously, we know that didn't happen last night. But you know what? Still, 4 more games left to go for the preseason, so there's still plenty of time. I'm not concerned about KCP because obviously he's been super consistent throughout his entire career. So I highly doubt that all of a sudden he's going to have this horrible season. He's always been a pretty consistent guy. In terms
except
of his
for
stats,
December.
We don't need to go into that. There were some other things on his mind, Trevor. Like coming in and out of jail, maybe.
Right. That was the problem.
Yeah, but, so I think at the end of the day, we know what we're going to get from KCP, so I'm not too concerned. I would like him to, show a little bit more out there, even though it is just the preseason. But, like we said, we have 4 more games left, so it's not freaking out yet.
Right. All right, Hannah, let's wrap things up. Obviously, the Lakers still have 4 games left in the preseason. There's still going to be plenty of basketball to analyze before the regular season starts. Any final thoughts? Have you been pleased overall with the Lakers? Disappointed? Where are you at?
I don't want to say I've been pleased or disappointed. I think I've been pleased with certain aspects of it, and I've been disappointed with certain aspects of it. But until we really get to see a regular game where guys are really putting in 100% of the effort, we really get Lonzo back, we get LeBron putting in 100%, we really kind of get a little bit more of a consistent rotation into play. That's when I'm going to really be able to kind of assess this team. So right now, I'm not disappointed. I'm obviously excited because it's the beginning of the season. So, I just need the regular season to start already so we can kind of get a little bit better of an idea.
I can't wait for Lonzo to get back, and so we can see the second unit. I think has been really rough, but I can't wait to see either Lonzo or Rondo with the second unit. I think that fixes some of the issues that they've had. So really interested to see that happen. Overall, like you said, I'm not super enthused with what we've seen so far, but I am not completely disappointed either. We're kind of somewhere in the middle. I think defensively as a team, they've got to get a lot better if they're going to get out and run in transition the way we want them to. So far, their transition numbers look great, by the way, which is exactly what we thought they would be. So we want them to be able to get out and run, and that means getting stops. And right now, the defense has not been consistently good. That first game, they were awful. Second game, a little bit better. I think that's going to grow as their chemistry improves. So they're going to get better and better there. Overall, though, I think whenever I look at this team and I think, man, they just look so rough, I just remember two things. It's early, and the Lakers got LeBron. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, you want to feel better. Go and look at the post from July 1st. The Lakers got LeBron.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. Once the regular season starts, this is all going to look very different. All right, Hannah, I think that's a good place to wrap up here. Hey, thanks so much for hopping on here and helping me break down some preseason basketball.
Of course, I'm so excited. We actually have like a game to talk about. Before, we're just kind of making it up and going on news and stuff. But now we actually have some real basketball that we can talk about. So that's super exciting.
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm loving breaking down actual games. It's awesome. Well, that's going to do it for today. Everybody, make sure you go follow Hannah on Twitter at Hannah_Kulik. Great follow on there. If you'd like to put yourself through the pain and suffering, you can follow me and all of my Lakers musings on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. And make sure you guys head over to LakersNation.com for all your latest breaking Lakers news. And don't forget to go support our sponsors, Lightstream. Head over to lightstream.com/Lakers for credit consolidation. And of course, Uptime Energy. Anytime you need energy, go check out Uptime Energy Drinks. You can find them again on 7-Eleven, GNC, and Amazon.com. That's it for today. We'll be back next week to break down some more Lakers preseason action. Till then, see ya.